Though, even though, in spite of, despite. Study this example situation. Last year, Josh and Sarah had a vacation at the beach. It rained a lot, but they had a good time. You can say, although it rained a lot, they had a good time. It rained a lot, but in spite of the rain, they had a great time. Despite the rain, they had a good time. After or though, we use a subject verb. Although it rained a lot, they had a good time. I didn't apply for the job, although I was well qualified. Compare the meaning of although and because. We went out although it was raining heavily. We didn't go out because it was raining heavily. We went out although we didn't go out. although 주어 동사 despite 동사. After in spite of or despite, we use a noun or pronoun, this, that, what, etc. or ing. In spite of the rain, we had a good time. She wasn't feeling well, but in spite of this, she continued working. In spite of what I said yesterday, I still love you. I didn't apply for the job in spite of being well qualified. Despite is the same as in spite of. We say in spite of, but despite. She wasn't feeling well, but despite this, she continued working. You can say in spite of the fact that, and despite the fact that. I didn't apply for the job in spite of the fact that I was well qualified. I didn't apply for the job despite the fact I was well qualified. Compare in spite of and because of. We went out in spite of the rain. We went out despite the rain. We didn't go out because of the rain. Compare though and in spite of, despite. Although the traffic was bad, we arrived on time. In spite of the traffic, we arrived on time. We couldn't sleep although I was very tired. We couldn't sleep despite being very tired. We couldn't sleep despite being very tired. Though, although, equal. I didn't apply for the job though I was well qualified. In spoken English, we often use though at the end of a sentence. The house isn't so nice. I like the yard though. But I like the yard. I see them every day. I've never spoken to them though. But I've never spoken to them. Even though, but not even alone. is similar to although. Even though I was really tired, I couldn't sleep. Complete the sentences. Use although. A sentence from the box. I didn't speak the language well. 1. Although she has a very important job, she isn't well paid. I recognized her from a photo. I'd never seen her before. Although I'd never seen her before, I recognized her from a photo. Although I'd never seen her before, I recognized her from a photo. Although I'd never seen her before, I recognized her from a photo. Sarah wasn't wearing a coat. Although it was quite cold. Sarah wasn't wearing a coat. Although it was quite cold. We decided to invite them to the party. Although we don't like them very much. We decided to invite them to the party, although we didn't like them too much. Very much. I managed to make myself understood. I didn't speak the language well. Although I didn't speak the language well, I managed to make myself understood. Although I didn't speak the language well. I didn't speak the language well. Although I didn't speak the language well. Although I didn't speak the language well. I managed to make myself understood. The room wasn't warm. The heat was on. Although the heat was on, the room wasn't warm. Although the heat was on, the room wasn't warm. I didn't recognize her. Although I'd met her twice before. Although I'd met her twice before, I didn't recognize her. Although I'd met her twice before. We're not close friends, although we've known each other for a long time. We are not close friends. Although we've known each other for a long time. We are not close friends. Although we've known each other for a long time. Complete the sentences with although, in spite of, because of. Although it rained a lot, we had a good time. In spite all our careful plans, A lot of things went wrong. All our careful plans. A lot of things went wrong. In spite of. In spite of all our careful plans, a lot of things went wrong. We'd planned everything carefully. A lot of things went wrong. Although we'd planned everything carefully, a lot of things went wrong. I went home early. I wasn't feeling well. I went home early because I wasn't feeling well. I went to home the next day. I went to work. I went to work next day. I went to work the next day. I still wasn't feeling well. I went to work the next day. Even though I still wasn't feeling well. Although I went to work the next day, although I still wasn't feeling well. Chris only accepted the job. The salary, which was very high. Because of the salary, which was very high. Chris only accepted the job because of the salary, which was very high. Sam accepted the job, the salary, which was very low. In spite of. Sam accepted the job in spite of the salary, which was very low. Very. There was a lot of noise. I slept quite well. Although there was a lot of noise, I slept quite well. I couldn't get to sleep because of the noise. Use your own ideas to complete the following sentences. He passed the exam although he didn't study. He didn't study. He didn't study more. He didn't study as much as he should have. He passed the exam because he studied he hadn't studied because he had studied. He passed the exam because he had studied every single day. As much as he can do it. I didn't eat much, although I didn't eat much. Although I have to. I didn't eat much. Although I was on a diet. I didn't eat much. Although I wasn't on a diet. I didn't eat much in spite of in spite of delicious food. I couldn't sleep. I was very tired. Make one sentence from two. Use the words in parentheses in your sentences. I couldn't sleep. I was very tired despite. I couldn't sleep despite being very tired. We played quite well. We lost the game. In spite of in spite of in spite of quite being in spite of being played quite well, we lost the game. I'd hurt my foot. I managed to work home. Although I'd hurt my foot, I managed to work home. Walk home. I enjoyed the movie. The story was silly. I enjoyed the movie in spite of in spite of the story in spite of silly. No. In spite of the story. We lived in the same building. We hardly ever see each other. Despite living in the same building, we hardly ever see each other. They came to the party. They hadn't been invited. They came to the party. Even though they hadn't been invited. They hadn't been invited. Use the words in parentheses to make a sentence with though at the end. The house isn't very nice. I like the yard though. I enjoyed reading the book. The book. Very long though. The book is very long though. We didn't like the food. We ate it though. Lizzie is very nice. I don't like her husband though. 방향이 채점은 끝났습니다. Okay. Although I'd never seen her before, I recognized her from a photo. Sarah wasn't wearing a coat, although it was quite cold. We decided to invite them to the party, although we don't like them very much. Although I didn't speak the language well, I managed to make myself understood. Although the heat was on, the room wasn't warm. I didn't recognize her, although I'd met her twice before. We're not close friends, although we've known each other for a long time. In spite of all of our careful plans, a lot of things went wrong. Although we'd planned everything carefully, a lot of things went wrong. I went home early because I wasn't feeling well. I went to work the next day, although I still wasn't feeling well. Chris only accepted the job because of the salary, which was very high. Sam accepted the job in spite of the salary, which was very low. Although there was a lot of noise, I slept quite well. I couldn't get to sleep because of the noise. He passed the exam, although he hadn't studied so hard. He passed the exam because he studied so hard. I didn't eat much, although I was hungry. I didn't eat much in spite of the fact that I was hungry. In spite of the fact we played quite well, we lost the game. In spite of playing quite well, we lost the game. Although I'd hurt my foot, I managed to walk home. I enjoyed the movie in spite of the fact the story was silly. The fact. In spite of the fact. In spite of the silly story. Despite living in the same building, we hardly ever seen each other. Despite the fact we lived the same building, despite the fact we lived in the same building, we hardly ever seen each other. They came to the party even though they hadn't been invited. The house is. I enjoyed reading the book. It is very long though. We didn't like the food. We ate it though. Liz is very nice. I don't like her husband though.